Imagine waking up one morning. You are 16. You live more than 50,000 years ago. There are no mirrors, no books, no doctors, no older sister waiting to explain what comes next. Then you look down. There is blood, but there is no wound. No animal attacked you. Nothing hurts the way an injury should. What would you think? Would you believe you were dying? Would you hide it? Or would your family already know this day was coming? Here is the strange part. This happened to almost every woman who has ever lived, hundreds of billions of times across human history. Yet almost nobody talks about what the very first period looked like before civilization existed. Not because it was unimportant, but because history stayed silent. No diary survived. No cave painting tells the story. No ancient voice explains what that moment felt like. But archaeology, biology, and anthropology leave behind tiny clues. When those clues are connected, they reveal a story far more surprising than most people imagine. Because the biggest mystery is not how ancient women survived their first period. The real mystery is why it arrived much later than it does today. Most people assume girls in prehistory became adults much younger. It sounds logical. Life was shorter. Survival was harder. But nature does not always follow modern assumptions. The human body has only one priority: stay alive first, reproduce later. Every growing child is quietly running an invisible energy budget. Food comes in, energy goes out. If survival consumes almost everything, reproduction waits. It does not matter what the calendar says. Your body refuses to move forward until it believes there are enough resources to protect both mother and future child. That decision happens automatically. No one controls it. Scientists spent decades studying this hidden biological checkpoint. They discovered something fascinating. Puberty is not controlled by age alone. It responds to nutrition, physical activity, stress, body fat, overall health. The body constantly asks one silent question: is now safe enough? If the answer is no, development slows down. Now picture the world our ancestors lived in. Every day meant walking for miles, carrying water, gathering plants, tracking animals, escaping predators, surviving harsh winters, enduring scorching summers. Missing meals was normal. Burning thousands of calories was normal. Modern supermarkets did not exist. Refrigerators did not exist. There were no vitamins, no protein shakes, no emergency food deliveries. Every calorie had to be earned. That changes everything. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies found girls often reached their first period years later than girls living in industrial countries today. Not because something was wrong, because their bodies waited until enough energy was available. Evolution was protecting them. Having a baby during starvation could threaten 2 lives instead of 1. Waiting increased survival. Nature is patient, much more patient than people realize. But now another mystery appears. Imagine you are that teenager. You experience your first period. Who explains it? The honest answer is, we do not know. There are no written records from prehistoric families. Nobody can tell us the exact conversation. Anyone claiming certainty is inventing details. Good history begins by admitting uncertainty. But anthropology offers something valuable. Across many traditional societies separated by thousands of miles and completely different languages, researchers noticed a surprising pattern. A girl's first period was rarely ignored. Sometimes she stayed apart for several days. Sometimes older women taught her new responsibilities. Sometimes families celebrated with food, songs, or special clothing. Sometimes it became a rite of passage. The customs were different, but the message was remarkably similar. Childhood had ended. A new chapter had begun. Could prehistoric communities have done something similar? Possibly. We cannot prove it, but human cultures repeatedly create ceremonies around life's biggest transitions. Birth, adulthood, marriage, death. It would not be surprising if the first menstruation became one of those important moments long before history was ever written. Then comes a question almost everyone asks. What did they actually use? Surprisingly, this is where archaeology becomes frustrating. Ancient stone tools survive, bones survive, teeth survive, fireplaces survive, but soft materials almost never do. Imagine burying a piece of cloth in wet soil for 20,000 years. It disappears. Moss disappears. Bark fibers disappear. Soft leather decays. Plant padding rots away. The The very materials people likely depended on vanish long before archaeologists arrive. That leaves an enormous gap in the evidence. Some people confidently claim prehistoric women used one exact material. Others insist it was something completely different. The truth is far less dramatic. Nobody knows for certain. Historians build careful hypotheses instead of pretending certainty exists. They examine what materials ancient people already collected every day. Soft moss, flexible grasses, tree bark fibers, animal hides prepared until smooth, natural absorbent plants. Many served other practical purposes: cleaning wounds, padding clothing, protecting babies. That makes them reasonable possibilities. But possibilities are not proof. Good science always keeps that difference clear. Something else makes this story even more fascinating. Menstruation itself may have changed across human history. Today, the average woman experiences around 400 periods during her lifetime. Ancient women probably experienced far fewer. Why? Because their lives looked completely different. Girls reached puberty later. Pregnancy often happened earlier after adulthood. Breastfeeding commonly continued for years. Long periods of breastfeeding naturally delayed ovulation. More pregnancies, longer nursing, fewer lifetime menstrual cycles. This means prehistoric women likely spent much less of their lives menstruating than women do today. It sounds unbelievable. Yet many evolutionary researchers believe this dramatically changed the female reproductive experience across thousands of generations. Modern life altered the rhythm of the human body more than most people ever notice. Now imagine being an archaeologist searching for answers. You uncover ancient campsites, stone blades, cooking fires, animal bones, tiny beads. But there is one thing you almost never find: evidence of women's everyday lives preserved in enough detail. History remembers kings, warriors, weapons, massive buildings. Daily experiences disappear. The conversations between mothers and daughters disappear. The quiet lessons disappear. The fears disappear. The celebrations disappear. Entire generations leave almost no written voice behind. Yet without those women, none of human civilization would exist. Every family, every empire, every nation begins with mothers whose stories history barely recorded. That silence may be one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. And in the next part, that mystery becomes even stranger. Because once humans finally began writing, the earliest medical records revealed ideas about menstruation so shocking that some survived for thousands of years, while others turned out to be completely wrong. For thousands of years, the greatest mystery was not that women had periods. Everyone knew they happened. The mystery was why they happened at all. Without microscopes, without hormones, without modern biology, ancient doctors could only observe what they saw. And sometimes those observations were surprisingly accurate. Other times they were spectacularly wrong. The earliest surviving medical texts from ancient Egypt treated menstruation as something worth recording. That alone is remarkable. More than 3,000 years ago, people were already writing about women's health instead of ignoring it. They documented bleeding patterns, fertility, pregnancy, physical symptoms. Not perfectly, but seriously. It was one of humanity's first attempts to understand a process that had existed for countless generations before anyone learned to write. Then came Greek physicians, Roman scholars, medical thinkers across Asia and the Middle East. Every civilization added another piece to the puzzle. Some believed menstruation cleaned the body. Others thought it balanced invisible forces. Some theories sound strange today. Yet many represented genuine attempts to explain a biological process using only the knowledge available at the time. Science rarely moves in a straight line. It advances through questions, through mistakes, through corrections. Every generation inherits old ideas, then tests them again. But perhaps the biggest surprise is not what ancient people believed. It is what they could never see. Inside the human body, an extraordinary cycle was unfolding every single month. Hormones rose and fell. The uterus prepared itself. Tiny chemical signals traveled through the bloodstream. None of this was visible. To the naked eye, menstruation looked mysterious because almost everything causing it remained hidden. Even today, many people never realize how incredibly complex the process really is. What appears to be a few days of bleeding is actually the final stage of a month-long biological sequence that begins weeks earlier. Your body is constantly preparing for a possibility that may never happen. Every month it builds. Every month it waits. Every month it quietly resets. It is one of the most sophisticated survival systems evolution ever produced. Now think about prehistoric families again. Imagine knowledge passing from grandmother to mother, mother to daughter, not through books, not through classrooms, through conversation, through observation, through experience. A girl did not need a written manual if someone she trusted had already lived through the same moment. That invisible chain of knowledge may have lasted for tens of thousands of years. Long before alphabets existed, long before paper existed, entire generations depended on memory alone. Stories became education, habits became tradition, advice became survival. Some of that knowledge was probably accurate. Some of it almost certainly became myth. But together, it helped young women navigate one of life's biggest transitions without modern medicine or manufactured products. Then something unexpected happened. Human civilization grew. Cities expanded. Cultures changed. Yet instead of becoming more open, many societies became more silent. Menstruation slowly transformed from an ordinary biological event into something hidden behind closed doors. In many places, people stopped discussing it openly. Embarrassment replaced conversation. Myths replaced understanding. Even in the 19th century, buying menstrual products could feel uncomfortable because shopkeepers often refused to speak about them directly. Imagine that. Humanity had crossed oceans, built railways, invented electricity, yet millions still struggle to discuss one of the most universal experiences on Earth. Sometimes progress arrives unevenly. Technology races ahead while culture moves much more slowly. Then history took another unexpected turn. During the First World War, nurses noticed that new medical dressings designed for wounded soldiers absorbed blood far better than traditional cloth. That practical observation changed everything. Manufacturers realized the same material could solve a problem women had managed on their own for thousands of years. Within only a few decades, entirely new products appeared. Disposable pads, modern tampons, better hygiene, greater comfort, more freedom. Consider how astonishing that timeline really is. Humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Modern menstrual products have existed for little more than 100. That means for well over 99% of our species' existence, women relied almost entirely on natural materials, reusable solutions, family knowledge, and personal experience. The products many people now consider completely ordinary are actually among the newest inventions in the entire story of human biology. And here is the deeper lesson hidden beneath all of this. Ancient women were never waiting for civilization to rescue them. They adapted, they observed, they learned from one another. They solved problems using the resources around them because survival demanded creativity long before factories could manufacture convenience. We often imagine the ancient world as helpless. The evidence tells a different story. Human beings have always been remarkably resourceful, especially when survival depended on it. Every generation inherited challenges that seemed impossible. Every generation found solutions that fit its own time. Those solutions looked different from ours, but they worked well enough to carry humanity forward. So the next time someone asks how ancient women handled their first period, the most honest answer is also the most fascinating one. We do not know every detail. History simply did not preserve them. But we know enough to reject the myths. We know enough to appreciate their resilience. We know enough to recognize that behind every civilization, every discovery, every empire, and every chapter of history stood countless women whose quiet strength was rarely written down. Their names disappeared. Their voices faded. Their everyday experiences dissolved into time. Yet without them, none of us would be here today. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. The people who shaped human history the most often left behind the fewest words, while their legacy continues inside every family, every generation, and every human life that followed.